Hi, and welcome to Willits Library's Sustainable presentation. This month we're talking about trash, calling it Trash Talk. So the library is focusing on sustainability this year in 2022, and this month we're talking about trash. We can all do our part. Every little change, every small change can make a big difference. Reducing what we send to the landfill may seem like a small step, but that can make a huge difference. So just for your information, a few statistics about garbage and waste. The average person in America sends 4.9 pounds of trash to the dump every day. We produce 4.9 pounds of trash. Americans throw away about 28 million pounds of food waste alone every year. We create 624,000 metric tons of waste per day, and the United States spends $200 billion on waste management and resources lost due to waste management. The United States has over 3,000 landfills that are active right now. That's 3,000 landfills that are like the ones pictured on this slide are getting overflowing. So the other interesting statistic is that the United States generates more plastic trash than any other nation. And as we get into this talk, we'll talk a little bit more about the repercussions of that plastic on our environment. Okay, so this is an interesting graph that I found. It talks about the different types of items that we send to the landfill. So just to share with you a few statistics about garbage, we have paper is 23% of what we send to the landfill. Paper is highly recyclable, and that's something very easy to keep out of the landfills. Glass is only 4%. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it's about 9 million tons of glass in one single year going to the landfills. And glass takes over 1 million years to fully decompose. Metals are about 8%, as you see on that on the graph. And by throwing metals into the landfill, it increases the need for mining new metals. And fresh aluminum can cost twice as much to produce than using recycled aluminum. Yard trimmings and food is a combination of 33%. Food waste is estimated at 63.1 million tons in one single year, and yard waste 35 million tons. Plastics is the other item. It's over 12%. United States throws away 35 billion plastic water bottles every single year. On an average, Americans toss 60 million water bottles into the trash every day, which is the equivalent of about 700 trashed water bottles every minute. I'll say that again, 700 trashed water bottles every minute. That's this, 700 of these every minute. So plastic is also hard to reduce to completely decompose. It can take up to 400 years for plastic to degrade completely. 8 million metric tons of plastic ends up in our oceans each and every year, which has created what has been named the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is 620,000 square miles in size, which is 2 Texases. That's basically an island made of our garbage. It's the size of Texas, or 3 times the size of France, if that's a better comparison for you. And when I think about this, I just think, man, we can do better than this. We know better. We should not be allowing our trash to drift through our creeks and our rivers down into the ocean and to create such an environmental catastrophe as this. And so that leads us to, so now what can we do about it? And so for the last portion of this presentation, I want to talk about how each of us individually can make a difference in what goes to our landfills. First, let's talk about paper. Number one, we can use less. We can try to go paperless, which is hard to go 100% paperless, but we can certainly use less. For example, you can sign up for paperless billing. You can use cloth napkins at home instead of paper napkins. You can stop using paper towels and instead using cloth towels and get out of the paper plate habit. You can use your phone app for making lists instead of grabbing a fresh piece of paper. You can read newspapers and magazines online instead of subscribing to those items. In fact, the library has a digital collection of newspapers, New York Times and such, and magazines, all available to you online. Uses up no paper at all. You can stop using wrapping paper. Wrapping paper gets thrown away in massive amounts. Be creative on using maybe some recycled material, maybe cloth, maybe bags. One gift bag gets reused multiple times, and so it's much better for the environment than wrapping paper. When possible, have your receipts emailed to you instead of printed out. And you have a record that's easy to keep track of and help the environment a little bit at the same time. You can also reuse paper instead of just using it once. All paper can be recycled and made into new paper. You can use paper in your compost pile. You can reuse your shopping bags. That would save some paper going to the landfill. Glass, as I mentioned, it is infinitely recyclable, meaning that you can recycle it. It can be crushed and made into a new glass. That one can be crushed and made into a new glass infinitely. And unfortunately, most people go ahead and throw away most glass because it doesn't have a California redemption value. And so it goes into the waste bin instead of into the recycle bin. But you can recycle those items as well. You're not going to get cash for it, but you'll be doing the environment a favor. You can also reuse glass. In addition to trying to use less, you can reuse it. Save glass jars for food storage instead of buying special containers for that. Using glass jars for organization, for pencil cups and your paintbrushes or what have you. You can take your lunch to work in a glass jar. Just make sure it's one that can be heated in the microwave if it's a meal that needs to be heated up. So reusing glass is another way of keeping it from going to the landfill. Metals, you can reduce what goes to the landfill by not using single serve